courts have overwhelmingly accepted the utility of DNA evidence in cases where biological material can be found at the scene of a crime. However, such biologic evidence is found in only 10 to 15% of cases. So what do courts rely upon by way of scientific evidence when there is no DNA? Or, just as importantly, what did courts rely upon before DNA became the gold standard in forensics? There are a number of scientific tests that the police and prosecution have used to convict innocent individuals over the course of the last 50 years. They include analysis involving hair, fibers, bullet lead comparisons, tire tracks, shoe imprints, bite marks, and most importantly, fingerprints. Close examination of wrongful conviction cases that have used these types of tests to falsely prove someone's guilt are now generally referred to as junk science. Experts that touted that their scientific inquiry using these tests provided almost positive proof that the suspect was in fact the perpetrator of a crime have proven over and over again to have been wrong. The Innocence Project notes that false or misleading forensic evidence was a contributing factor in almost 25% of all wrongful convictions in the United States. For decades, the FBI Crime Lab has conducted hair microscopy, where an examiner uses a high-powered microscope to view hair from a crime scene and compare it to a known hair sample. Looking for similarities in each hair, if enough characteristics are the same, the examiner deems the hair a match. However, following a trio of DNA exonerations in Washington, D.C., 3 defendants were wrongly convicted on FBI microscopic hair comparison evidence, which turned out to be false. As a result, the FBI commenced an internal review of this type of analysis to determine the extent to which flawed evidence may have in fact tainted examinations. The FBI estimates that approximately 20,000 cases now need to be re-examined.
Do you watch CSI, Law and Order, NCIS? I like how those crime shows use modern science to get the bad guy.
Rab's prints are all over Singer's convertible. The pollen that was in Petty Officer Bick's lungs is found only one place on Earth.
People who watch these shows believe that this is how it's really done.
It's not?
It's not.
Former Detective Harry Houck's annoyed that the TV shows make forensic science look infallible.
And you watch a detective get down and look at a body and touch it. Yeah, he's been dead for 3 hours now. He ate dinner 4 hours ago. I can't do that.
On TV, experts identify the killer by his bite mark.
A little 3D magic for clarity, and I give you the killer's incisors.
In real life, experts claim they can identify criminals that way.
Swinton was convicted and sentenced to 60 years in prison based on testimony that bite marks found on the victim were his.
The TV show Cold Case Files covered the trial in which Alfred Swinton was convicted because this so-called bite mark expert said Swinton's teeth matched a bite on the victim.
When the models of the teeth were laid onto the bite mark, it was a perfect match.
The expert explained he's a neutral scientist.
A forensic scientist is not on the side of the prosecution or the defense. We look at the evidence and we make sure that if we're going to make a decision, it's going to be a truthful decision.
The doctor was just wrong. He was just wrong because it's an unreliable technique.
It looks like science.
It does. They're in white lab coats. They sound very authoritative, but they're full of it.
Lawyer Chris Fabricant helped get Swinton freed from jail by doing a DNA test.
New DNA evidence shows he had nothing to do with the 1991 murder of Carla Terry.
Tonight, Alfred Swinton's conviction was vacated, and he's a free man.
That's Chris Fabricant celebrating with Swinton the day he was released.
Bite marks is similar to you and I maybe looking at a cloud, and then I say to you, John, doesn't that cloud look like a rabbit to you? And then you look at it and say, yeah, Chris, I think that does look like a rabbit.
But that kind of junk science puts innocent people in jail. That's 1 or 2 people. Many more people are in jail, and we're supposedly safer because of that.
If you think that maybe even 1% of convicted defendants may have been innocent, we have 2.6 million people in prison today. So we're not talking about a couple of people. We're talking about tens of thousands of people.
But the people who use these techniques, they believe in it. They're confident.
Sure, they're confident. It's faith-based science.
The expert who got Swinton convicted now admits he was wrong. But police still trust bite marks.
Let's say one tooth is missing in the front. So you got to look at that, and you know your suspect's got one tooth missing in the front. That's pretty good. But then again, that's not enough.
Houck says he'd demand other evidence, but not all cops do, especially if experts say they're sure someone's guilty. When they say so, you trust that.
Yes.
But even fingerprint evidence isn't foolproof.
The deadliest terror attack on Europe since World War II.
When terrorists in Madrid killed 193 people, the FBI found this fingerprint on one of the terrorists' bags and matched it to this fingerprint of a man in Oregon.
An international investigation led to Brandon Mayfield.
However,
2 weeks after Mayfield's arrest, Spanish investigators found the man to whom the fingerprint really belonged.
FBI researchers claim fingerprints are right more than 99% of the time, but that still leaves plenty of wrongful convictions. Other techniques are even less accurate. Carpet fiber evidence, gun tracing, hair matching.
Microscopic hair comparison evidence has been admitted by courts for a century.
In one case, it was a dog's hair.
A dog hair was associated wrongfully with the human hair. Since the turn of this century, there have been 75 wrongful convictions.
Fabricant works for the Innocence Project. By using more modern DNA evidence, the project's lawyers have helped free 191 innocent people. All these people were wrongly jailed based on so-called scientific evidence. Why do judges admit this stuff? Why don't defense attorneys get it thrown out?
We all went to law school because we don't know science. We don't know math. And if somebody comes in with a white lab coat and says, I've been accredited by the American Board of Forensic Odontology and I've been practicing for 20 years, that's good enough for government work.
That shouldn't be the standard. Too much is at stake. Jurors tend to believe people who courts call experts. But the experts often rely on junk science. Juries and judges should be much more skeptical.
Bullets found at a crime scene are analyzed by forensic ballistics experts who examine the rifling of a spent bullet. Rifling is the term given to grooves within the barrel of the gun in manufacturing. When a bullet is fired, the rifling leaves markings on the bullet as it passes through the barrel. These markings can be used to identify the type of weapon involved. A comparative examination of bullets from two crime scenes can help investigators determine if the same gun was used in multiple crimes. Any bullets left at the scene of a crime are collected by the investigators and analyzed by ballistic experts. A review of cases have shown that while ballistics evidence may show similarities of markings, these similarities cannot concretely identify one specific weapon to the exclusion of every other firearm in the world. Determining how many points must match to identify a specific weapon with any confidence is almost impossible. Now, the FBI has stopped using comparative bullet lead analysis as an investigative tool. In analyzing fingerprints, forensic experts usually examine a partial print to determine how many points defined by ridges and whorls of the fingerprint match with the fingerprint of a suspect. But even amongst experts, there is disagreement about how many points must correlate between the two in order to determine a match. Some experts say a match can be determined by matching as few as 12 points. Others say 20 points are necessary. If experts can't agree on what makes a definitive match, how can juries be expected to determine the answer? Further, even if a full, complete fingerprint was lifted from a crime scene, and even if the print could be proven beyond all doubt to belong to a suspect, the print itself does not mean the suspect had anything to do with the crime. It only proves that he or she was in that location at some point in time, possibly days or even weeks before the crime occurred. Fingerprint analysis can be useful in helping law enforcement to identify a suspect, but it is hardly the irrefutable scientific evidence that proves a defendant committed a crime. And lastly, perhaps the most thoroughly discredited junk forensic technique is bite mark analysis. Both basic premises of the technique, that human bite marks are unique and that the skin works well to accurately preserve them, have been proven false. The history of bite mark analysis shows how such junk science can become accepted by the judicial system and remain accepted despite compelling evidence to the contrary. The next video lesson is still forensic science, but deals particularly with DNA analysis.